The all-powerful Apple has just lost a billion-dollar lawsuit. And this could completely change the experience for those who use the iPhone in terms of apps and the whole issue of its closed ecosystem. Let's react directly to a video here from the content creator and programmer Lucas Montano. Later, I'll leave the link somewhere here for you to follow his channel, okay? I will react as a user and content creator. Apple, as well as I have Android, right? I'm in both worlds, but this lawsuit completely changes the way we use the iPhone. Let's react here, but comment below. Do you have an iPhone or a MacBook or an iPad? Or if you don't, would you like to have one or do you hate it? Are you on Team Android? Comment below, I want to know. Let's go straight to my computer screen. I'll hit play here. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, go.
It's over. For Tim Cook. Man, Tim Cook is going there. Let's see what the board will do, but I don't know if you saw the news today, but Apple just lost big time. Because according to what was presented in court, according to the judge over in the United States, Cook chose Cook to Spurley. What's happening? Let me give you a bit more context. So today, or rather early yesterday morning, it was announced that a judge just destroyed Apple's control over the Apple Store. The judge from the Epic case. So do you remember Epic Games? That whole case where Epic had to leave the store. So you can no longer download the games from the Apple Store because of the way Apple charges fees on the sale of products.
For those who don't know, Epic is the creator of Fortnite, one of the most famous and most played games to this day. And what did they do at the time? They launched a website to make sales outside of the Apple Store because you installed Fortnite on the computer, Android, and Apple Store. But Apple was taking at the time 30%, 40% of all transactions. And it's not the game. The game, as far as I know, is free, right? But there are outfits, little music tracks, dances, little weapons, character skins, secret character. So for every microtransaction within the app, Apple would take these 30%, 40%. But that's a very large fee for those who have invested everything in the game, the app, the development, right? Because you pay developers to keep releasing new things, right? And then they went ahead and unilaterally created this site, right? For the agreement between Apple and Epic, it was unfair. But with this fee, which is practically a robbery, this battle ensued. Apple removed Fortnite from the iPhone, from the Apple Store. So Epic suffered a loss of many millions of dollars because these iPhone users could no longer play, so they could no longer make purchases. And then this legal battle started, which is still ongoing, right? But let's continue there.
So there was a whole legal process happening, and finally we will probably have Epic Games returning to the App Store. Is this good? Is this bad? I still don't know. I admit I don't have an opinion on it, but Apple was prohibited by Apple from charging. The judge in the case, Apple versus Apple, prohibited Apple from charging a commission on purchases made outside the App Store due to its ongoing anti-competitive behavior. So we are seeing a strong antitrust trend here. There, on the main channel, we talked about Google having to sell Chrome. If you haven't seen that video yet, it probably hasn't been released. It will be released this week. But there's a lot happening with antitrust in the United States and Europe. So the judge in the case recently decided that with immediate effect, Apple is no longer allowed to charge fees on purchases made outside from the app and prevents companies from restricting how developers can inform users where they can make purchases outside of the apps.
In other words, you can have the website for external sales, and Apple cannot punish you for that. A few months ago, Europe authorized parallel stores, right? So it's not just the Apple Store anymore. There can be another store, and there is where you install apps on the iPhone, so it's no longer exclusive to the Apple Store. You take Android, it has the Play Store, but there are other stores. For example, the Samsung Store, where you install apps through the Samsung Store, and it's installed on your phone. There is no exclusivity. So a few months ago, also through a legal battle, Europe, not Europe, right? Like the regulation there from the European Justice punished Apple and made it mandatory for them in Europe to allow other parallel stores, right?
And they will appeal the decision. So what are the important points? As part of the decision, the judge says that Apple cannot, for example, impose any commission or fee on purchases that consumers make outside the app, restrict the style, formatting, or placement of developers' links for purchases outside the app. And what does this mean? It means that often within the app, you could be clever, place a link that leads to the web, and the user makes the purchase on the web, not in the app, because Apple will still be able to charge for purchases made within the app using Apple when you click to buy. If you are an iOS user, you know what I'm talking about. So imagine that Apple prohibited, for example, placing a huge banner saying become a premium user on the web platform before using it on mobile. And then you pay via the web, avoiding fees, and use it on mobile with the same login. So Apple can no longer restrict or block, prevent the publication of your app in their reviews because of this. So the judge restricted the style. Apple cannot restrict the style, formatting, or positioning of the links. Another thing, Apple cannot block or limit the use of buttons or other calls to action. The CTA, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Interfere with consumers' choice to leave the app with anything other than a neutral message, informing the user that they are accessing the site. Third, well, my opinion on this point here, I think it makes sense. I as a user, 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 I want to choose to pay with Apple Pay, or I don't know, within the app there, because it's easier. I don't want to have to register my credit card on the company's website and all that. Or maybe I trust Apple's systems more to manage all my subscriptions. That's why Apple has to be the user's choice, right? What I think will be the consequence of this in the short term, all companies will now update. So this will worsen the user experience. It will worsen the user experience. Probably companies will not lower the prices. So it's not like now there's no Apple surcharge. Companies will lower the price of subscriptions. No, man.
This is the issue, right? Like, if it's a little cheaper, then let's suppose Apple is charging 30%. Then Epic goes there and says, oh, if you buy it externally, like on the website, it's 10% cheaper. So I earn 10%. And Epic earns 20%, all right? But I'm paying less. My experience will be worse because I'll have to leave the app, buy on the web and such, but it will be 10% cheaper. Or I buy it more expensively, but with more convenience, with a better experience. I believe the user should decide. Now, if it's the same price, obviously Apple doesn't even need to worry, right? If it's a better experience for the same price, I'll stay in the app, right? Obviously.
Man, they won't, Anyway, I believe they won't. So I've never seen a company giving money to the user. The experience might worsen, but for the user, in the long run, I believe it's better. And Apple, man, but your area, dude, charges less fees. The senior director of corporate communications at Apple said that we strongly disagree with the decision. We will comply with the court order and appeal. The CEO of Epic Games, Tim, said that after the decision, the company will bring Fortnite back to the US App Store next week. Sweeney is also offering a peace proposal to Apple. If Apple extends the Apple tax-free and friction-free court structure worldwide, we will return Fortnite to the App Store globally, and we will end the current and future litigation on the matter. So basically here, Fortnite will return to the App Store, but only for the American store. I was a judge in the American court. This process is a global process in several countries. Okay? We have this aligned. So here is Tim talking about it. No fees, no charge, no fee in the web transactions. Game over for Apple. Tax. Actually, there are some fees, unless you have your own payment gateway. Probably a company like Apple, which maybe they have, pays much fewer fees by implementing their own payment method. But there is still a fee, but it doesn't reach 30% fee, which is garbage. Imagine, 30%, man. It's the same thing, for example, here on YouTube. So thank you, YouTube.
Sometimes the business margin is 35%, for example. Then you go and give 30% to Apple. You're left with 5%. It's me, unfair maybe. Comment below.
Thank you, Edu. I wouldn't have a job if it weren't for YouTube. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, YouTube takes a good part, but I understand, Because, man, there's the whole part of ad distribution, dude. There's the whole tracking part. Imagine how awesome YouTube is at distributing ads within the platform. It's because Alphabet has Google Chrome that tracks your cookies. Cookies? It has all the products. Google, search, everything integrated. So that's why they can deliver an ad that you might not like, and that the company will have a good return on the cost of that click they are paying for AdSense. So there's a lot of investment involved. In Apple's case, the 15%, 30% they charge is to maintain the entire App Store structure. But anyway, does it really need that much structure? Isn't it easier for everyone to download the app wherever they want? I think no one uses the App Store to browse and discover apps anymore. Nowadays, app marketing is much more word of mouth or a call through a social network. Back when the App Store and Google Play Store were very good, they were responsible for the vast majority of user traffic. It was a time when, yes, you were discovered within the store, just like we had SEO, search engine optimization. We also had a search engine optimization very focused on the App Store. So nowadays, it's no longer like that. Well, and in Europe, it's about the Digital Markets Act. Man, 4 years, 4 months, and 17 days of process. Ongoing. And today, it concluded in the United States. In many cases, Apple takes 30% of purchases made in its apps. In the end, Apple sought to maintain the billion-dollar revenue stream in the direct challenge to eliminate this court. So here, basically what the judge is saying is that, man, Apple decided on the wrong side. It was a wrong choice. She notes, the judge, that within Apple, the head of the App Store, Phil, advocated for the company to comply with the elimination, but the CEO, Tim Cook, made a poor choice by ignoring Schreiler and letting the CFO never, Maestro, I will convince this one otherwise. And that's it.
Man, Apple is increasingly losing lawsuits. For example, it took 1 million years to switch. It had the Lightning port, and for 1 or 2 years now, it has been switching to USB-C. You take any phone, Android, any LED lighting, even the mouse here. It has a USB-C port, and Apple doesn't. Why? Because they wanted to profit from the charger, including by removing the charger from the box for you to buy. Also for you to buy the little cable as well. Because when it breaks, right? Then you buy another little cable, a little cable of extremely low quality, right? Now, this issue of apps, of allowing them both in Europe and now in the United States, parallel stores as well. So, this whole closed Apple ecosystem more and more. It is opening up, but not because Apple is allowing it, but because it is being forced to. There are cases where they are even talking about you being able to use Apple. There was also the issue of the emulator, right? Emulators don't enter the Apple Store, and recently Europe allowed you to install game emulators. I'm not talking about piracy or not. It's a matter of emulating. Suddenly, I take my own game and put it there and have an emulator to be able to play. The Super Nintendo, for example, but a game that I bought, for instance. Anyway, whatever, right? In any case, Apple is being forced to open the doors, but with a foot in the door. I want your opinion. Do you think Apple's system is closed, but it's also much more secure and provides a better experience than Android? Or do you think not? That developers need more freedom, they need to pay fewer fees, and the system needs to be more open? Comment below. Remember, if you want to watch other videos focused on making money with artificial intelligence, this video here is for you.